All right, good morning, everyone. Super excited to have everyone here today. We have two of the agents out of our Keller Williams Avenues Market Center. We have Amanda and Nikki with AN Homes, and today we're going to have a conversation around farm your way to exponential growth. And Amanda and Nikki, if I could have you two introduce yourselves, tell everyone just a little bit about what your background looks like and kind of what you envision this conversation looking like today for everyone that's been able to join us.
Go first. All right. So for anybody that doesn't know me, I'm Amanda Rieter. As of this November, I'll have my license for 4 years. Previous to being a realtor, I worked in Washington, D.C. for almost 13 years doing state and local government affairs. Moved my family to Colorado here in 2015. We built our house in 2014, moved in 2015, worked in PR and communications for a little while before getting laid off. And my cousin used to be an agent with our office. She's still a KW agent, just in Arizona. And she said to me, Amanda, you should really be an agent. And I said, ha ha, ha, that's really funny. That's never been on my list of things to be. And 4 years later, I can tell you it's the absolute best thing that I ever did for both myself and for my family.
Awesome, love it. Amanda and Nikki, what about you?
My name is Nikki Castillo. I will have had my license right now about 3.5 years. I got mine. I started school right after she got her license. Um, I have a background in special events for the majority of everything that I've done, from galas to fundraisers, weddings. I used to be an event coordinator for a resort. So everything that I do, I love to entertain and throw a party. And so that kind of brought a big part of our business together, is throwing everything we do as an event.
Yes, perfect. So, as we're kind of going through this conversation, right, it is around geographical farming. And we know it can be powerful. And we talk about this all the time where agents, it's like, if you want to build a massive business, let's niche down. And you two truly did that. What made you two decide to focus on a geographical farm?
Well, I mean, anywhere where you live, right, you're going to know the most about your own neighborhood. So, the price point pretty good for the neighborhood. We actually live in the neighborhood that we farm. I mean, we've been working on farming another neighborhood for about 18 months now. But I would say we've been farming candelas since before we were actually even realtors. And the benefit to that is you just get known within the community. And in the 2 years really that we've been working together, we now have 20% of the market share as of last year in our neighborhood.
20% market share in a neighborhood. How many, and I know we're going to fly without a parachute here, but I believe you're going to know these answers. How many houses are in this neighborhood that you guys own?
Sure, 1,600
1600.
right now. It will, when fully built out, it'll be around 1,800. There's only attached um, multifamily still being built, no additional single family still being built in the neighborhood.
Perfect. So as you're going through and we're talking about 20% market share, and we are talking about Candelas. For those that don't know, the neighborhood is in West Arvada. What made you two, minus living in the area, because that has to make it a little bit, I would assume simpler, but what made you two truly decide to land in this geo farm that you decided on?
I think it was organic, one, but two, we were already very involved with the community before we got our licenses. Um, it would, anything that we did prior is something that anyone could start doing from here on out. But if you have kids, and this is how we got started truly, is when, as soon as the on-site school was built, I took over throwing the first ever auction to raise money
Mhm.
for the school. And Amanda came to work with me. So then we were out in the community. We were getting to know people. We were asking for sponsorships. All the builders knew who we were. And this is prior to us ever having our licenses. Um, had we had our license, it would have been totally different conversations and it might have grown faster.
Yeah.
But we didn't have that kind of platform to speak from. early on, but anything we can do to be a part of the community or add value to the community, we do. But so it started with the school auction, and the first year I did it. Then the second year Amanda took it over, and then I worked for her, and we would have, multitude of volunteers coming through. And we got to know so many people in the community through that, whether they're moving or not. You got to form those connections and those personal and um, trustworthy connections, where people feel like they know you, they can trust you, you do good in the community. And so that's what that school auction kind of set off for us.
I'd say it also just goes back to what I didn't really even realize what we were doing at the time, right? It was working our
Mhm.
sphere of influence, growing our sphere of influence. So, I mean, your geo farm should, it might not be just a physical place, it might be a community of people. If your kid's really into soccer, or like her kid's really into baseball and theater, your farm doesn't necessarily always have to be a geographical area. But I realize now that that's exactly what I was doing, is I was taking the sphere that we had and we were sort of blowing it out, and really working to become synonymous with that area. The other thing I think that, kind of happened early on, and I've taught a class on this before, is that Facebook, when I first moved to Colorado, I didn't know anybody but a couple of my cousins, and I created a Facebook group. And it was the Candelas Residents Group. It now has like around 2,000 members in it. And I would go to all of our community meetings and get information and be, I'm sort of outspoken. So being a voice for people in the community and asking to hold the builder and developer accountable. Um, and it kind of got me some notice. It was sort of an accident, to be honest.
Yeah.
And people just started to come to me with questions about the community. Then we got involved in the school. So then it was not just the community, but also the school. And then we layered onto that getting our licenses, and then real estate became, a topic of conversation in addition to all of the other things that people might want to talk about.
Yeah, so what I just heard was that you were both very well connected into the community. This is somewhere where you guys live and you have connections. I heard sphere of influence, and it was layering on to plugging into events, and then from the events it turned into, let's start a connection page on social media, and then it just kind of waterfalled from there. And as you've been progressing, the market share has just gone up and up, as you guys have just been truly the face, the mayors, if you will, of Candelas. Awesome.
We didn't stop there. there
Right.
there's always going to be a need in whatever farm that you have.
Mhm.
Find that need, develop the want, and then execute on how to deliver to your community. We didn't have a social committee, so
Yeah, we'll
we
talk about that. Yeah, there's a
so I mean
couple.
there's so many different things that you can do.
Yeah. No, I love
And
that.
we have slides on that too. So
And there's plenty of resources. Perfect. So as we're going through, the kind of the best practices that we're going to talk about is the postcards, the community organization, the client events, the sponsored events, and keeping the homeowners up to date with the current market conditions in your neighborhood. So those are the steps that we're going to talk about. And if we could jump right into number one, right, which is the postcards. What are some of the messages and the messaging that you were trying to get out to the community through postcards and print advertising?
sure. So print advertising. Gosh, it was over a year ago now. You may have seen some of these types of magazines in your neighborhood. So Neighbors in Northwest Arvada, there's Arvada Lifestyles magazine. I know there's one for Applewood and other places. I got a call from the person who first started developing this, and they said, well, we're going to have two real estate sponsorships. And I totally couldn't afford it at the time, but I told them I want both. I want to be almost the only realtor in this publication. So what you're seeing on the left-hand side of the screen is actually, and right under it is one of the ads. We change our ads every month in that, and Nikki updates them. This one was on the back cover. So I don't know if anybody can actually see us, but was on the back cover, and it has our QR code on it, which allows people to go ahead and get our home bought. Nikki called me after this went out. This was just the July publication, and she
Yes.
said, did we do something different this month? And I said, why? She goes, because all of a sudden we have like 80 new people in our home bot that we don't know. And I said, interesting. The piece in the middle is part of our sponsorship. We provide the neighborhood market update every month. So this publication only goes to Candelas, Leiden Rock, Spring Mesa, and Northwood Acres. So Candelas is our primary farm. Leiden Rock is a secondary farm that we've been working on. Spring Mesa, we really don't intend to compete there. We know we can't, given some other folks that live there and know that neighborhood much better than we do. And Northwood Acres honestly has like one of the lowest turnovers I've ever seen. Really large lots, really big homes, not a ton of them. We are hoping that this publication will grow a bit in the next year or so, and expand to neighboring communities like Whisper Creek and Five Parks is where we'd like to see this magazine go next, because that's still Northwest Arvada, and that's sort of that extension of our farm. Now, postcard wise, on the right hand side, we actually just sent out the one at the top, did a more specific on that one, actually sent this one through command. It was the first time I sent a postcard through command. And it was kind of cool because I was able to just circle, create a square essentially of the areas within Candelas I wanted it to go to, versus the one that you see on the bottom actually was a just sold, but the front of it was promoting our garage sale. And I can tell you that off the postcard on the top right, we're getting ready to list a house on Thursday. That is the result of a phone call from that postcard and selling the exact same house around the corner. And the result of the postcard on the bottom right has been multiple conversations, but primarily will be a probably $1.2 million listing next spring. Now, if you don't have listings, guess what? You can still do stuff and send postcards. So lean on like Land Title and any of your folks like Mitch, where if you want to do a postcard on the waiting to buy a house, or Bronco's schedule, or Rocky's schedule, there are opportunities, or just an upmarket update. There are opportunities to market yourself, even if you don't have listings and sales in order to use. But these are, sort of the avenues that we use. In particular, in the Neighbors of Northwest Arvada magazine. Again, I don't know if anybody can actually see our picture when we're talking, but the new Freedom Street Social just opened, and we actually had our monthly ad just right across the page with the neighborhood sales from the Freedom Street Dining Guide. So if anybody's going to be reading this magazine and looking for things, they probably can't get away from us.
Yeah.
And we've actually had a couple of clients who have called us and said that the reason they called us is, oh, there those girls are again. Oh, there they are again. Oh, there they are again. So we're trying to give this, constant reminder that we are everywhere, and people need to see you multiple times before they're going to give you that credibility.
But also, if you are just starting and your budget is small, you do not have to mail these. We did a lot of door knocking. And when I say door knock, we don't actually knock on the door. I put something in the door. If it says no soliciting, please don't do that unless I have an invite to a VIP broker open or cocktail party. But we did a lot of just door dash, basically, of our postcards at the beginning, because we didn't want to pay for the additional postage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you can use our Office Depot account and get them for relatively cheap. I mean, the Office Depot discount's amazing. And then just go and put them on people's doors. Do a door hanger. We once did a door hanger that looked like an old Western wanted poster when we were looking for a house for clients. And it was like, call your neighborhood, real estate sheriffs. And guess what? We found them a home doing that.
Yeah. No, I love all that. And so Two things. The first one, I correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you played red light, green light, right? You said in the very beginning that while you didn't have the advertising dollars to truly spend, you knew that it was worth it. How long did it take for what you know came from print advertising that you actually saw someone raise their hand and a deal came from this?
A
A
year.
year. It was a
A
lot of
year.
money and it was a year, but it's continued. It's just,
Yeah.
I knew it was going to be a huge that was going to play into the larger strategy. And I'm just a little tiny bit competitive. And when they told me they were only going to have two sponsorships for realtors, I said, well, I want them both. And I called Nikki and I said, hey, this is how much it is a month. Would you want to, and this was before we were a formal team. I said, would you, and we were doing our dating for a year, right? Before we actually got married at the beginning of this year, so to speak. I said, do you think you can shoulder taking half of this cost? And she was like, okay, like, I sure hope you know
Yeah.
what you're doing. And so, she gave me a lot of faith and grace. And, you know, it has opened the door for a number of conversations. In particular, we've gotten to know the people who own Freedom Street. Because of the partnership with Northwest Arvada, we've had several introductions to other, I'd say, influential people in the Northwest Arvada area because of our networking and support of this magazine. So, it's something that I'm glad I did. It was scary at first, but, I could see the value in the future.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that, right? And one of the things that you also talked about was these MOFers. And you have started putting on these make offers for immediate responses with these HomeBot QR barcodes that you're putting out there. So you're actually providing a service that if people raise their hand and they don't need you at first, right, to actually get some information. So tell us a little bit about HomeBot for people that don't necessarily know what it is.
So HomeBot is a home evaluation. It's basically an algorithm, but in a very sexy display, very colorful, sexy display. And it goes out to anyone that I add there or they add themselves on a monthly basis. It puts in their address, what they paid for the home. They can add what they owe on their mortgage, and it gives them a snapshot of how much they owe, how much equity they have, how much they could sell their home for, how much they could take out and buy an investment property, how much they could come, pull out and pay off debt. So many different, a multitude of things that their house, all this equity that they're sitting on provides. And then of course our name is down at the very bottom. So we are the
Yeah.
one providing all this value. Now, if you were, it's not that expensive. I want to say it's like $50 a month, but it's worth every darn penny. And then you can also partner with lenders on that, and they will take a lot of the cost away for it. So I think it's even cheaper if you partner with a lender. We have so many wonderful lender partners. We didn't want to show favoritism to one over the other. So that's why I chose to take on the extra cost, which is really, truly not that much. But it is a constant touch, as opposed to doing command where it's just like a neighborhood nurture type of thing. This is actually showing massive value and pinpoint on their actual equity. So it's a really good source and a monthly touch that we don't have to worry about. However, I do get notified when people check their HomeBot. I get a list of how many times they've checked their HomeBot, and there's a place on there to check, click a question like, do you really think this is how much my home is worth? I think it's worth this. And then it opens up a conversation. I contact them and say, I saw that you were interested. I'd love to come and see your home in person, because every home is completely different. HomeBot, Zillow, they don't know the upgrades you've actually put in your home. They don't take into account the view. All those different things matter. And so the value could be completely off. And I would love to correct that for you so you know exactly how much equity you do have in your home. And we always come to our side, right? That's what we do. It's not that I'm here to sell your house. I'm here to help you find a new one. I am here to be a resource to you, to empower you as the consumer to make the best
best decision for you and your family, given the expertise and knowledge that we have, that we as your fiduciary will give to
Yeah, no, that's great, guys. And so as we're going through, what I'm hearing, everyone, is that not only are we taking massive mind share with these postcards, we're also offering value, and that's what the company that starts with the Z really went out there and did and provided that value, right? Not everyone believed that their Zestimate was 100% correct, right? But everyone cares about keeping up with the Joneses, and did I make a better decision than my neighbor? And you guys are actually going out there and providing them the data and saying, you know what, this might not be 100% accurate, but at no cost to you, I'll actually come out and I'll tell you exactly what I believe that your home is worth. Plus, I live in the neighborhood. I'm the neighborhood expert, and that's huge.
you. And I mean, the other thing is being, we talk to our folks about being the neighborhood expert. I mean, all communities are going to sort of have challenges and opportunities, right? Instead of saying good things and bad things, it's one of the things I picked up from corporate America many years ago, challenges and opportunities. Instead of saying, here's the bad stuff, well, here's the challenge, right?
Yeah.
Our challenge in Candelas is the fact that we are located adjacent to Rocky Flats. For anybody that doesn't know what Rocky Flats is the site of the largest Superfund cleanup in the United States history. If you don't know when Rocky Flats was operational, it was back in like the 70s, and they made detonators for nuclear warheads. So there's a lot of fear from the Cold War era and from the cleanup and things like that, which we as realtors can only say a certain amount of, right? We can say, here's the information, we and other people have made our decision to live here and feel very good about it, but I actually tell them, I live here in the neighborhood, we live here in the neighborhood. And I do believe that for our sellers, that adds a lot of credibility, to the fact of living there. Plus, through living there, we have access to and have formed relationships with people who are the scientific experts about Rocky Flats. And what I tell my sellers is, if you had somebody who was willing to give you the absolute best offer, but they had concerns about Rocky Flats, well, we have the resources we can point them to so they can have a meaningful conversation that we are not legally a part of.
Yeah. No, I really like that. And so as we're going through there, right, you two are marketing yourselves as the local expert in this community. And so I know you two do a lot of different things. Tell us some of the different pieces that you're actually running to put yourself as the market experts.
Okay. We try to take on leadership roles in all the other spheres that we're a part of. We both like to be in control, if that hasn't come across, but she was vice president of PTO for the school, so she was very involved in the school. We did not have a boosters for the arts department at Ralston Valley. Started it. I am the booster president at Ralston Valley. In small things like baseball, my kids in a competitive baseball league. Who took over throwing the charity poker tournament to send our kids to a tournament? That would be me. All this stuff is a lot of extra stuff that we do, but it all comes back to us. Everybody knows that, we don't just do it, but we love being a part of the community. So we love, not every moment at Booster President or PTO Vice President is wonderful by any means, but it shows that we love where we live. We know where we live. We give back to where we live. So we do try to be a pivotal point of all the spheres that we're in. I'm just not a member of a club.
Yeah, and I will say also, like, kind of a graphic on it, and I was going to put it, that's actually the little piece to the right of the picture. And so this is actually a magnet that our school puts out with the full year calendar of when school's in session, and basically when your days off are, when holidays, all testing, things like that. So we secured the sponsorship for that this past year and already for this year. And so again, we talk about like breathing things that are going to get fridge time. Generally speaking, every family gets at least one of these. A lot of families are divorced or multiple households, more of these. It's been really fun to walk into people's homes who we have sold where this is on the side of the refrigerator. Again, just showing that we're involved. We are a part of the school sponsorship, so we are on a banner in the front of the school. But here's the thing, not everything has to cost you money, right? So I just included our Candelas Cares in the bottom corner. So we participate with our coaching program every year to do the back to school supply drive. And we also do the Thanksgiving food drive. So you don't have to be spending money to throw large events or sponsor if you don't have it, but you can also become a leader in your community by, just simply doing good. The picture above is actually from a few years ago, right after I got my license. My daughter and I were participating in a little community like holiday market. And I, was basically selling soaps. All of this was going to an angel tree. And then I had cookies and, recipe card with those and my contact information on it, right? So there's so many different ways you can get yourself out there. Just try to be as authentic as possible about, what you're doing. Try to pick something you are passionate about. So, because I think the authenticity part does matter.
Yeah.
And one thing that would be easy if you can you hear me now?
Yes.
It's taken a minute for the microphone to adjust to both of us. Like for Christmas, your neighborhood, you could start a cookie exchange, things that don't cost, hardly any money, or do your own backpack supply drive. Because I don't know that the coaching program is doing that this year. Find a local charity near your sphere or near your farm and see what they need and do your own drive so people see that you're come from caring. That doesn't cost you any money.
Yeah. No, I like those tips from both of you. And I see Stephanie has her hand raised. Stephanie, what do you have for the group?
I wasn't sure if you could see my hand because I'm masking. So my comment is this. Well, first of all, ladies, thank you. So helpful. And I want to confess that I'm one of the people that forgot to have children. So I don't get the benefit of those kid groups, which I'm super jealous about. But I've been getting creative, just like you say, with joining organizations that mean something to me and getting involved on boards and volunteering my time. And that's really starting to pay off for me. So I just want to encourage people, if you don't have kids or you don't have that connection to kid-based events, it doesn't mean that you can't find those authentic sources for your own voice.
Well, and Stephanie, you do, knitting. I mean, gosh, I don't even know what kind of groups are out there for that, but I'm sure there's tons, and you could start your own. And you guys could knit stuff for charity and advertise the heck out of that. And I mean, there's so many things that you just find what you're passionate about, because it's hard to show the passion if there is none. So find something that you do love, that you are passionate about. If it's animals, if you have, someone started a Facebook group in our neighborhood for the pets of Candelas. Didn't cost any money, but guess what? It was something that their name is at the top of that or whatever. And so people just get to show their fun pets. And it can create conversations. You can comment on everybody. So then your feed shows up more in their feed. There's a million different ways, and we would be happy to, if anybody's struggling with ideas, we'll brainstorm with you and we'll interview you and find out where your passions lie that maybe you're really focusing on or not looking at, and we'll help you find an avenue to branch out on your own and start your own endeavor.
That's awesome. And so two of the things that I heard, right, is that firstly, it doesn't need to cost any money to run this play, and going through and just figuring out what you're passionate about. And the second thing that I heard was, if there's a role that you want and your community doesn't have it, create the role, right? Create your own position, whatever that looks like. If it's going to add value and it's going to bring the community together, it's the right play to run. So as we're going through this, what do your client events look like? I know that you host a lot of different events. Tell us a little bit about these different things.
Yep. So the first one we start off with, I'll take it from a school year kind of perspective. The very first day of school, we've done it 3 years.
And I can't wait.
We do a Moms and Mimosas event at my house. I do a huge mimosa bar. We pay for the whole thing. I just tell people to drop off their kids. It's an early morning. I'm up at 5 trying to get my house all ready and everything all done, and people drop off their kids at 7:45 and they're drinking at my house by 8. You know, it doesn't have to be just cocktails, but I do have coffee and tea and things like that. It's not very wildly drank, but anyway, but we have met so many moms, but the biggest thing that I think the community has gotten out of it is a lot of communities are very transient right now, where dual income, people are moving in and out, you're transferring for jobs. During COVID, nobody knew each other. Everybody had a place and a safe space and an open space to come and meet other moms where they didn't have any friends yet. And we do a really good job, I think, of working the room, introducing moms to other moms, bringing them into a group. Because when you walk into a group where people may already know each other, it's very intimidating and it's very hard. So our job that day is to introduce everybody and bring people into conversations. And they walk away feeling, gosh, I got to meet so many girlfriends because of you guys. Thank you so much. And we hear constantly, I met my best friend that first mimosas.
I have one of my absolute very best friends I've ever had since I moved here. I met at Moms and Mimosas, and we are one of the people who always comes. We're selling her house right now. I mean, again, I call it being a serial networker. People really appreciate when if they come in and you show them kindness. I mean, it's so easy to show somebody kindness and bring them in and make them feel comfortable, and that creates an attachment to you sort of subconsciously. But again, that's how we kick off the year. Hey, Moms and Mimosas, drop your kids off, you know, then you're going to get your school magnet with us on it. And then I didn't even put trunk or treat on here.
Right. And then so moving into the year, then we do for Halloween, we put on a trunk or treat in our neighborhood. And if you don't know what that is, local businesses or even families can, for free, just come and they decorate their trunk with a special theme and then just provide candy. And we set the time and kids get to walk through and basically trick or treat through a huge parking lot or area. And usually the people dressed up, and it gives them a safe space and a daylight space to go trick or treating. So we will put that on. We have put on the Thanksgiving drive where we would put full meals together for families in need at a local K-8 elementary school. Then I put on a shopping event, which you don't have to have kids to do this. This is a big one, and it was so fun, and everybody was willing to pay for it. I secured and rented a party bus, and I contacted a local boutique, and this could be anywhere. I mean, you could do whiskey tasting or beer tasting or shopping, whatever your demographic is. And everyone paid $25, and we had a bus. It took us to Old Town Arvada, so we didn't have to drive. Everyone brought either some Prosecco or something to drink on the bus. Yeah, we did have a sponsor for all the. Yeah. And then they took us to Old Town. Everybody got to go eat wherever they wanted to eat. And then we had a private shopping event at one of the boutiques in Old Town Arvada. So for $25, all I did was rent the bus, and then I got all that money back. And then we just created an event for everybody to go to. And it didn't cost me a dime.
Hey, Nikki, did you say there were drinks involved?
Always.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry. There's always drinks involved in our parties. I know, I'm sorry.
Don't apologize.
But so in networking and having people together, and you bring people together that don't normally associate or have conversations, a little glass of something helps people loosen up. It really does. So, and that's what we do. I know, I'm sorry. And then we will do a breakfast with Santa event in our neighborhood. And then we will also do Easter events, both in 2 of our farms. We usually have a booth and usually sponsor the Easter bunny or the photo booth. And we actually just create the photo booth, and the bunny comes over at one of the events, and at the other one, he's already paid for. But what do you think?
Oh, no,
what other events do we do? Oh, and then we do a garage sale.
Yeah, our
community garage sale.
The garage sale that is we used to have a lifestyle coordinating. I'm actually a Metro District board member for Candelas. So, I mean, I guess that's another way you can get really synonymous with your organization or your community is to actually take a leadership role. Now, there are challenges and opportunities that come with being, a part of a organization that is a governmental board. But, again, a lot of people know who I am because of that. So Candelas Fest we have coming up in September, and that is actually like a carnival type event. We coordinate it. We are a sponsor of it. There are many sponsors of it. But what I have found, excuse me, over and over again is we're sort of getting credit for the whole event because we are the ones actually planning it and executing it, even though we're not the ones sponsoring the entire thing. So again, if you're just helping to provide leadership, be a part of it, it doesn't mean that you have to pay for the whole thing or run the whole thing, but make a meaningful contribution to it. But
Yeah.
everything comes from my Keller Williams. Did you hear me? Okay. I'm just seeing the yellow box now. I'm looking at it. Everything comes from my Keller Williams email address, and everything has our signature at the bottom. Every communication with every event through every organization, I no longer use my personal email. It's all Keller Williams.
Because I'm a Metro District board member, I have to walk a fine line, right? So I'm included on the stuff she sends out, but if I'm sending things out, it's usually from my personal Gmail. But pretty much anybody that knows me also knows that I am a real estate agent.
Yeah. So what I just heard, right, is that going through and find a need in the community and host events around the need, put a groups together around just connecting with people to know your neighbors because 2020 was super lonely, and now let's start to meet the people that have been moving in that we didn't get to meet when we weren't allowed to be within 8 feet of each other. Going through, it's good to know the Easter Bunny and be able to get on his schedule to get him out for events. And it's okay to ask people to chip into the events as long as you're putting the event together. People will pay to be a part of something. So loved all of those. And let's talk about some of the events that you're actually sponsoring in your area as well.
Sure. So as I mentioned, we did start farming Leiden Rock about, I guess, 2 years ago now. And they have a ping pong park, which is pretty cool. And so not this past summer, was the summer before, we threw a ping pong tournament. So really didn't cost us much. The ping pong tables were already there. We bought some cute trophies. We helped coordinate the signups, brought waters and, treats for the kids. Yeah, we had a food truck there. I'd say our biggest events, though, one being the garage sale, which we just had at the beginning of the summer. We coordinate the whole thing. We had about 115 this year participating households. We then ran marketing online. I paid for marketing through like the Arvada Press, which goes out to all the other, the Westminster Tribune and the Thornton, whatever, and through the Denver Post. It was really great. Then what we did with our garage sale to add an extra touch is we tried to stop by as many of the garage sales as possible. We brought donuts or other treats. We also, for all of the folks that participated, Nikki put together these bags, and it had, stickers, like price stickers. It had some suggestions like how-tos, best practices. Obviously, our contact information and the fact that we're realtors was all over that. And then we followed up and stopped by. Thank you so much for participating. How's it going? And I mean, it was really funny. One person we pulled up and she's like, thank God you're here. My mom needs to buy a house. We were like, okay, Candelas Fest. These are a couple of pictures from last year. We had about 600 people that came to Candelas Fest. And at one point, Nikki was actually doing the bar backing for Bluegrass, because Bluegrass Bourbon and Coffee, for anybody that doesn't know, has a second location at Candelas, and the owners actually live in Candelas, and we've gotten to know them. So they were a big sponsor for us last year. This was right after they were opening too, so it was great exposure for them. We talk a lot about trying to elevate other small business people within our community through our business. And I believe that we all benefit from that. And then you can see there's a picture of us from Breakfast with Santa. So that's actually at our clubhouse, and Nikki and I provide all of the food, beverage, and coordination for Santa for families. And we usually do about 2 shifts. So everybody gets a good amount of time with Santa. They don't have to pay for pictures. And our Santa and Mrs. Claus, man, are they amazing.
Yeah, so not only does it pay to know the Easter Bunny, you also know Santa and Mrs. Claus. And with that, you said this Candelas Fest, and I think you said 600 people. So while I don't think that it was 100% you guys that hosted this big event, I think you got some more community participation. What did that look like?
So I'm in the process of taking on and finding sponsorships for this coming one. Our next one will be September 10th. So I created all the sponsorship information. So we try to get as much of the expense offset by local businesses. Last year, I mean, our community did have a small budget. So that basically paid for the band. I had the entire rest of the event paid for. Last year, we put Candelas Fest on in 4 weeks. And now we have 6 weeks, but I found all the sponsorships in 3 days, the very first time. Because of our sphere, I was able to send it out to everybody, and everybody jumped on board. I don't know if it's a lack of urgency, but I just started the sponsorships 3 days ago, and I have half of them covered as of right now. So, you can throw events. You just have to be the coordinator of the circus. And then you just get sponsorships to pay for the different things. We're not allowing any selling, so everything is given away for free. We did coordinate food trucks, so we have 5 food trucks that come. We have bands, we have bouncy houses, we have everything. But it's a matter of just coordinating the event. People will come, just like people will donate to charities. They just want to know where it goes. But if someone they trust is coordinating something within your sphere or your farm, they're going to trust you to make the right choices, and they all want to be involved. It just takes one leader, and you have to step out of your comfort zone sometimes and take on that leadership role.
That's awesome. And so when we start thinking about this and we start thinking about becoming the real estate economist of choice, I think you two have taken it a little bit further, right? And as I just think about this Candelas Fest and the note that I just took, other than if you're wondering how to run one of these things, September 10th, you need to be in Candelas to see it happen. The second thing is you're not only just getting referral partners and being like, this is my whatever of choice, you're actually going through and you're actually condensing it down to a neighborhood as well. You're like, here is my referral partner that actually lives in our community. This is someone that you should support as well. Am I picking up on that correctly?
You are. And one thing that hurts also is I actually have to let other realtors in the event, but it shows me as the bigger person also. I allow everybody to participate. If you want to pay, you get to play. But I am the realtor coordinating the entire event. So, I try to be as fair as possible. There are other events that we show that put on that we are the only realtors. But when it is a neighborhood event, you should open it up to everybody. But guess what? Your name is on everything that you're sending out. Your name is on the invite. Your name is on everything. They're participating, but you're in charge, which shows leadership in your neighborhood, in the real estate market. Whether you're saying it or not, you're the one taking the leadership role. They're not.
Yeah. And I will tell you, I have a couple specific instances. I won't say who, but we have somebody who is not real estate related at all, who gave us a referral on a $1.2 million buyer. And now reached out to me yesterday about wanting to buy property, which is funny because I said to her, well, I'm in the process of buying property right now. Now I have some great insights on the property she wants to buy, right? So this does garner conversations. It does make people think of us. I'm thinking of a house we sold in November that I remember they came and I hadn't seen them in years. And they came and talked to Nikki and I in Candelas at Candelas Fest, and that was August. And then we sold their house in November. So it absolutely, it's not that I think the biggest thing is you can't go into every event expecting you're always going to walk away with that lead that day. You have to be open to the fact of meeting people and nurturing that relationship and continuing to do the activities, and then it will come.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, you two. And I think that as you're going through, right, you just said you're spotlighting other people. You're coming from contribution. You are bringing the community together, and the outcome, which isn't expected, right, is that people are like, "Hey, thank you for that. You're my real estate economist of choice. Even though I've never done business with you, I do know someone that's looking to buy or sell a $1.2 million property. Would you help them?" Right? And then later on down the road, more business is coming out of it. So that's huge. Now, one of the things that you're also doing is that you are keeping your neighborhood up to date on what's happening in the market. What does that all entail?
Sure. So, I mean, we do a couple of different things. As Nikki had mentioned earlier, we have our home bot. So everybody that goes into our database goes also into our home bot. Uh, we do actually use, I do sign people up for the neighborhood nurture, but we have just found that we're contributing more value and able to pinpoint more of who's looking through the home bot. Um, Really easy thing to do. The item in the middle just comes from command. And you can go, these are our neighborhood snapshots. Now, the really nice picture of Candelas, that is actually our intellectual property. That's, we're working on having more pictures done of the community, so we can have our own sort of, we can do our own promotional videos when and if we want to. But the snapshot in the middle, that just pulls right from command. I do generally say you should check it against, if you can, fast stats in the MLS, just because sometimes the numbers are a little askew with actives and pendings and days on market. And then the piece on the right is sort of a combination. This is actually a piece out of our listing presentation booklet that when we present to somebody what we're going to charge for their house, we make sure that they get a sense of what is the overview of what's going on in your neighborhood at this time. And then I change what's in red underneath of it based on, I just updated that for the change of our market, right? It used to say some other way more fun stuff. Um, but that's what we're doing. We're having those conversations. I just had a conversation yesterday with somebody that I did not know. We did not know. We met them through all of our online activities, right? And we started talking to them the beginning of actually it was the end of last year, right before the Marshall fire. And now we talked yesterday, we're going to be selling one house for them, and then they basically already told us that a year from end of this year we'll be selling two more houses for them, and those are both over 1.2 to 1.4 million dollar houses. So it pays to put the information out there. It pays to do your DTD2 and call and say, hey, I'm just calling to check in, do you have any questions? You may have heard the market's changing. And you don't have to be the smartest person in the room to find the answers and to make sure that you know what you're talking about in your own neighborhood.
Yeah, and so one of the things that I just heard was that the monthly neighborhood nurtures, which are at no added cost to KW agents, is one of the things that you started leaning on in the beginning. And then as you were doubling down and putting more intention into what you were doing, you were shifting from that product into another product at the same time. So it's not like you started with HomeBot. You started with the command application with the neighborhood nurture, and then you started adding into it, and you might sunset the command application, but that's where you did start to begin with.
Yeah.
Perfect. And as we're going through there, right, there's no wrong way to communicate. It is time on task over time, and we do know that we need to have a minimum of 36 touches. And so you guys are going out there and you're getting a lot of face-to-face community events. You plug DTD2, right, which is doing the database 2 for those that aren't familiar with it, which is just a protocol to reach out to people, so you make sure that you don't skip anyone through a year and you talk to everyone quarterly. Loving all of those different pieces. So I do know that you guys are pretty intentional about your websites. And so if we were to kind of talk about the website a little bit, what are we looking at here as it's scrolling on the left?
Sure. So we try to highlight. So one, Nikki and I are both former have a background in marketing, right? And so having clean and concise marketing is really important to us. So our website, we have a couple of different websites because we've been, as I mentioned, coming through an evolution. We try to make sure we're putting information about what we do on there. You can see pictures of our before and after staging on there, our value proposition.
Looks like we may have lost Amanda and Nikki for a hot second. So we'll let them reboot here. And I think that guys, as we're going through this conversation, we are seeing a lot of different pieces from these two, right? They are going through, and it looks like we have them back. So Amanda, we lost you for a quick minute. If you wouldn't mind, maybe just restarting. The marketing background is where we kind of lost you, and if you want to just talk about it from there.
Matt Harper just came in and was like, "We lost you." I'm like, "I didn't even move." No, so we're just we both have marketing backgrounds, right? So we're both very intentional with our branding. I would say we we want our brand to have a certain look and feel, right? Now we are now earned in Keller Williams luxury agents, so that also opens a new door of logos and looks, if you will, that we can use. And we just got new headshots. So we're going to actually be, in our mind, elevating our brand and doing some changes.
Mhm.
But we just try to make sure that things are professional, informative. There's a way to capture people's contact information and make sure that there's content on there to try to drive people there as well.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. I like hearing all those different pieces and going through and building the brand and everything that we're hearing, right? We're hearing the community, we're hearing phone calls, we are hearing that you are putting together events, you are doing postcards, you are having email and website presence, like you are doubling down and tripling down on every form of communication. And so as we kind of wrap this thing up, there is a lot of different like quick tips. So what would you say as we're going through here, what should we be focusing on if we wanted to start getting into a geographical farm? What would you two recommend us to look into start implementing first?
Hmm. Well, I would say first you need to identify your farm, right? Kind of think about what are your strengths and weaknesses when it comes to that farm, right? I say all the time you can throw a rock in Candelas and hit a realtor. There are a lot of us. So you might want to think about, how are you going to make yourself different and how are you going to make yourself stand out and what can you offer and provide? Um, and I think that you probably in your own community, you probably already have a bit of a sense of what that is already. You know, is it a lot of trash and people are always complaining about trash? Maybe you plan a community cleanup. Nobody does anything fun in your community. Maybe you see about planning, even if it's something simple like a cornhole tournament, right? Or, trunk or treat honestly doesn't really cost you anything but your time and money for decorating your car and candy. One of the easiest things you can do. And I would just say that the biggest thing is consistency. Don't get discouraged if you don't have $1 million deal from your first event. We didn't either. It really took, I mean, I was in the business for about a year before Nikki and I teamed up. We dated basically for a year and then really went all in together this year. So it takes a while. Real estate's a long game. And I think that that's the hardest thing for a lot of people is staying the course.
Yeah, and so for those that are, Amanda's mentioned dating a couple times at this point, and so for those that are like, what is Amanda and Nikki talking about this dating is that they started off marketing together, right? They were like, we live in the same community, we enjoy doing the same things. One's if we were to merge our marketing and our efforts in this community and see what happens. And then once you were like, you know what? I like you and you like me, and this thing seems to be working. Why don't we form a partnership around this and double down on our efforts? Is that kind of what we're hearing here?
That is correct. That's correct. Yes, that's what we meant. Because it is hard to form an actual team and make it work. And when you're not husband and wife, and when one is not the rainmaker, the decision maker, and then you're building your team underneath, a true partnership is much more complicated and much more of it's a huge commitment. It's a marriage, because if something happens, we have to like divorce and separate assets and everything. So it's nothing to go into lightly.
Yeah.
If that would be something you would be interested in, I definitely suggest dating for a while, see how your work ethic jives. I know we're going down a whole other path, but definitely date
Yeah.
somebody a while before you know.
I think, here's the thing. Would be a real we did. I never thought I would be a real estate agent. It was never on my radar. But getting involved in my community changed my life. Somebody said to me, "You will be good at this." I did it. Persevered to move. Honestly, the first year I was a realtor, my husband looked at me and said, "I don't think this is going to work." I think I netted after all my expenses like $6,000 that first year, but I kept going. And if you keep going and you do these types of activities, I'd say I'm somewhat cynical. And I came in and said, these people can't be this nice. This can't be this easy if I do all of these things they tell me. Well, we're a product of it. In 4 years, we did about $25 million worth of inventory last year and took 20% market share in 2 years. So if
Yeah.
we can do it, you can do it.
No.
Really quick, Ashley, I think had a question of where we hold trunk or treat. You can hold it anywhere. If you could do it at a school, you just have to make sure it's okay. We actually have a clubhouse, and so we do it in the parking lot. So everyone has their own parking slots. But anywhere that's within your community, just ask. You may have to get a small permit if it's, a city street or something like that. But very easy venue, within your community. Most local communities have a local park. Just talk to the city, get a permit, say this is what we're doing. Just make sure you're not blocking off any traffic, and they'll talk to you about that if you don't have your own park or rec center within your own neighborhood.
Think about where your community gathering spot is, right? If it's a certain park, if it's maybe there's a business that would love to draw more people to their business by having this event in their parking lot, right? Um, you're only limited by your imagination and the time that you have to actually coordinate the event.
Yeah. No, I really like that, right? As you're going through this thing, there is no wrong play to run as long as you believe that it's going to benefit the neighborhood and bring people together. So, with that, everyone, what questions, let's open it up. I appreciate that question from Ashley. What questions do you have for Amanda and Nikki, knowing that they have built this relatively quickly in the grand scheme of things to take this 20% market share? You have two of the very best when it comes to owning a geographical farm. What questions do you have at this time? And that's okay. So with that, Amanda and Nikki, as we close this thing out, what do you have for the rest of the group as they're going on this journey?
I'd say that you have support.
Yeah, just make sure it's eliminated.
That you have support. That if you do the things that Keller Williams in our office tell you to do, and you use the resources, you'll be successful. And honestly, we are very passionate about helping other agents because other agents helped us. A lot of really wonderful big agents, took the time to get to know us and give us their insights. And we want to pay that forward because we want all of you to be successful in your farms as well.
And just to reiterate, we are here for you. If you ever have any questions, email, text us. If you want to just brainstorm of ways you could get involved in your community, we're always here for you guys.
Awesome. Amanda, Nikki, I super appreciate your time breaking down how we can farm our way to exponential growth. You two have dropped a lot of knowledge on us today, and I'm excited to see how much more market share that you gain in 2022 and beyond in your geographical farm. And just wanted to thank you both again for your time.
Our pleasure. Thanks for asking us. It's honestly it's a real honor and very humbling for us. So thank you.
And it's interesting to see what we have done. We don't have any idea. Just kidding.
Yeah.